The Eagles front office just did something nobody saw coming, my friend. Howie Roseman built such a complete puzzle at the tight end position that there is now one piece left over, and that piece may be on the verge of being traded. 4 seasons with the Eagles, a contract renewed this offseason, and suddenly this player's future in Philadelphia is completely up in the air. You need to see what is happening behind the scenes at the Jefferson Health Training Complex, because this move says a lot about the direction this team is heading. I'm going to break it all down for you. Who this player is, why the position turned into a problem of abundance, and what Roseman is likely going to do to solve this equation. But first, if you're a diehard Eagles fan, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because Philadelphia's offseason is more active than ever, and you cannot afford to miss a single detail. So let's get into it. The name at the center of this discussion is Grant Calcaterra. The tight end who spent the last 4 full seasons as an Eagle was selected by the franchise in the 6th round of the 2022 draft, and was brought back on a 1-year deal at the start of this offseason. In theory, that looked like a sign the team still had plans for him. In practice, what happened next completely transformed the landscape around the player. The real question becomes, how did a position that was relatively stable suddenly turn into the most crowded spot on the entire roster? The answer lies in a sequence of moves Roseman made over the span of just a few weeks, and each one chipped away a little more at Calcaterra's space within the team. First, the Eagles locked up an extension for Dallas Goedert. That alone establishes the hierarchy with absolute clarity. Goedert is the #1 tight end, no debate. Full stop. But Roseman did not stop there. During the 2026 draft, the Eagles used a 2nd-round pick to select Eli Stowers, a talented tight end who arrives with real upside, and the kind of ambition to make noise from the very start of the preseason. 2nd-round picks are not spent on players who are going to sit on the bench. Stowers is coming to play, and that creates internal competition that Calcaterra is not going to win easily. And then, as if that were not enough, the Eagles still went to the free agent market and signed veteran Johnny Munt, adding another layer of depth and versatility to the group. And to close out the package, an undrafted free agent named Daquan Wright arrived with enough credential to be considered an interesting wild card in the fight for roster spots. In a matter of weeks, the Eagles' tight end room went from relatively straightforward to completely overloaded. Jimmy Kempski, a respected columnist at Philly Voice and one of the sharpest analysts of the Eagles organization, pointed out this situation with great clarity. In his analysis, Calcaterra emerges as the most obvious trade candidate, not because he is a bad player, but because the math simply does not work for all of these names to fit on the roster at the same time. And Kempski brought up a very relevant precedent. During last year's preseason, the Eagles did exactly this with Harrison Bryant, trading the tight end in exchange for a player who was on the roster bubble of the other team. Same logic, different situation. Taking a step back to understand Calcaterra's history, in 4 NFL seasons, all of them in Philadelphia, the tight end accumulated 42 receptions, 494 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. Modest numbers, but with important context. His best year was in 2024, when he recorded 24 receptions and 298 yards, the only season where he genuinely came close to being a consistent contributor in the offense. But last season, only 9 receptions and 76 yards. A significant drop that shows how much his opportunities diminished as the Eagles' tight end group became more competitive. Are you seeing the pattern? Calcaterra came to the team as a developmental prospect, showed some flashes over the seasons, but never managed to make that definitive leap to become an indispensable player. And now, with Goedert established as the clear-cut starter, Stowers arriving as a 2nd-round investment, Munt as the reliable veteran, and Wright as a potentially valuable wild card, the space for Calcaterra has simply disappeared. But here is what makes this story more interesting than it appears at first glance. The fact that Roseman re-signed Calcaterra at the start of this offseason, before all of these additions, suggests the team's interest in him was genuine at that moment. What changed was the speed and volume of the moves that followed. That is what Roseman does better than any other GM in the league. He operates on multiple layers simultaneously, and sometimes the pieces stack up before the balance is found. The real question then becomes, what do the Eagles expect to get back in a Calcaterra trade? And here the honest answer is that expectations need to be calibrated against reality. Kempski was direct about that. The idea is not to chase an impact piece, but rather a player who is on the roster bubble of the receiving team, someone who can compete for a spot, but does not have a guaranteed place. This kind of swap is standard in the NFL, especially when the asset being moved is a depth player without much market value but with real utility for the right team. What the Eagles gain from this goes beyond the direct return of the trade. By moving Calcaterra, Philadelphia frees up a roster spot that can be used for a player with greater upside given the team's current needs. It also simplifies the difficult cut decisions during training camp. Whenever you can turn a release into a trade, no matter how small the return, you are improving the franchise's position. There is one more dimension to this story that deserves attention. The Eagles' decision to invest a second-round pick on Eli Stowers is a clear signal of the direction the organization wants to take at the tight end position in the long run. Goddard is not a young player anymore. He is 31 years old, and while he remains one of the best at his position in the league, the window of time in which he can be the unquestioned starter is not infinite. Stowers arrives as the bet on the future, and with Munt as the bridge veteran and Wright as the wild card. The position is structured in a way that makes a lot of strategic sense, with or without Calcaterra. For Calcaterra himself, a trade is probably the best thing that could happen at this point in his career. In Philadelphia, with the current overcrowding, he is going to have an extremely hard time finding the space to grow and show what he is capable of doing. On a team with genuine needs at the position, he could find playing time opportunities that simply no longer exist within the Eagles system. The NFL has plenty of examples of players who needed to change teams to finally find the right context to develop their potential. Here is the deal. The Eagles' offseason is full of moves that look small when analyzed individually, but that together reveal a team doing meticulous, detailed roster refinement. A potential Calcaterra trade is not a headline-grabbing move like the A.J. Brown trade or the Stowers selection in the draft, but it is exactly the kind of quiet, efficient management that defines elite organizations in the NFL. Teams that do not waste assets, that turn depth players into marginal returns, and that arrive at training camp with the leanest and most competitive roster possible. Howie Roseman did not earn his reputation as one of the best executives in the NFL by making only the big moves. He earned it by making all the moves, the big ones, the medium ones, and the small ones, with the same attention and intention. A potential Calcaterra trade is one more example of that. And for the Eagles, every piece of the puzzle properly placed is one more step in the direction of another Super Bowl. With Goddard established, Stowers arriving with energy and talent, Munt as the experienced veteran, and Wright as a wild card, the Eagles' tight end position has never been better structured for the future. But here is the question I will leave with you, my friend. Do you think the Eagles can close a Calcaterra trade before training camp? And what do you expect Roseman to get back in return for the tight end? Drop your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back later to keep you updated with the latest Eagles news.